Before we start, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss important tips on handling HOA conflicts. This video will walk you through step-by-step how to deal with HOA issues legally, so make sure to watch to the end for the full guide. All right, let's get started. Imagine if you've worked hard, saved up for years, and finally bought your dream home in a peaceful, well-maintained neighborhood. You picture yourself sipping coffee on your front porch, enjoying the quiet mornings. But then, a letter arrives from your HOA. Violation notice. Your trash cans were visible from the street on collection day. Fine $100. At first, you laugh it off. Maybe it's just a minor oversight. But then another notice arrives. This time, it says your front door is the wrong shade of blue. Another fine. You reach out to your HOA board, but they ignore your emails. When you finally attend a meeting, they brush you off. Now, your peaceful dream home is turning into a stressful nightmare. Sound familiar? If so, you're not alone. HOAs, or homeowners associations, can be helpful in maintaining property values, but they can also become a source of endless frustration and legal battles for homeowners. In this video, we're diving deep into 5 legal ways to deal with HOA conflicts. Whether you're facing unfair fines, selective enforcement, or even threats of foreclosure, you have rights. And today, we'll show you how to protect them. By the end of this video, you'll have a step-by-step legal strategy to handle HOA disputes without breaking the law or losing your sanity. Let's get started. Understanding the power of HOAs. Before we dive into solutions, let's first understand what an HOA actually is and how it operates. What is an HOA? Homeowners Association is an organization that enforces community rules and maintains common areas in a neighborhood or housing development. If you live in an HOA-governed community, you are automatically a member when you buy your home. HOAs collect dues, often called assessment or fees, and enforce rules known as covenants, conditions, and restrictions CC and RS. These rules can cover everything from lawn maintenance to paint colors, parking restrictions, and even the types of pets you can have. Why do HOA conflicts happen? HOA conflicts arise for many reasons, including unfair or excessive fines. Some HOAs fine homeowners for minor or unreasonable violations, like leaving holiday decorations up for too long. Selective enforcement. Some HOAs apply rules inconsistently, allowing certain homeowners to break rules while punishing others. Poor communication. Many HOA boards fail to respond to homeowner concerns or ignore requests for clarification. Misuse of HOA funds. Some HOAs mismanage dues or refuse to disclose how money is being spent. Power-hungry board members. Some HOA leaders abuse their authority, making life difficult for homeowners. Knowing how HOAs function and why conflict happen is the first step to protecting yourself. But the key is handling disputes legally and strategically, not emotionally. The importance of handling HOA conflicts legally. If you try to fight your HOA without a clear legal strategy, you could face severe consequences, including fines piling up. The longer you delay, the more penalties you may face. Liens on your home. If you ignore HOA fines, they could place a lien on your property. Foreclosure threats. Some HOAs have the power to foreclose on homes if fees remain unpaid. Legal battles that drain your finances. Lawsuits against an HOA can be expensive and time-consuming. Instead of reacting emotionally or ignoring the issue, it's crucial to approach HOA conflicts with a well-documented legal plan. That's where our 5 proven strategies come in. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button. It helps more people see this video. Smash that subscribe button so you never miss a new story. Turn on the notification bell because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Share this video with anyone dealing with HOA conflicts. This information can help them fight back the right way. Understanding the psychology of HOA boards. To win an HOA dispute, you must understand how HOA boards think and what motivates them. Most HOA boards are made up of volunteer homeowners who are supposed to act in the community's best interest. However, in many cases, board members become power-hungry and make unreasonable demands. They lack legal knowledge and enforce rules incorrectly. They are influenced by personal bias, favoring some homeowners over others. They may be financially mismanaging HOA funds. Understanding these dynamics will help you build a strategy that targets the HOA's weaknesses. Instead of arguing, you'll use legal leverage to protect yourself. Why homeowners lose HOA battles and how you can win. Many homeowners lose disputes because they ignore HOA rules and refuse to comply. HOAs use this as an excuse to issue more fines. Don't keep records without documentation. It's hard to prove unfair treatment. React emotionally instead of legally. Angry confrontations often make things worse. Wait too long to act. HOA fines and penalties increase over time. To win, you need a calm, calculated, and legal approach, which we'll break down in the next sections. We're going to break down 5 essential legal methods to deal with HOA disputes step by step. Method number 1. Understanding your HOA's powers. Learn what your HOA can and cannot do according to the law. Method number 2. Document and gather evidence. Find out why keeping a paper trail is crucial for winning disputes. Method number 3. Negotiation and resolution. Discover how to resolve issues without escalating to a lawsuit. Method number 4. Filing a formal complaint. Learn how to legally challenge HOA violations using formal complaints. Method number 5. Preventing future conflicts. Avoid future disputes by staying informed and proactive. By using these 5 methods, you can protect your home, your money, and your peace of mind. Now that you understand why HOA conflict happen and why it's important to handle them legally, let's move on to 5 proven methods you can use to fight back. Are you ready to take control of your HOA battle? Let's jump into method number 1. Understanding your HOA's powers. Imagine if you receive a violation notice from your HOA stating that your mailbox is not in compliance with community standards. The fine? $250. You check the HOA's rules, but there's no mention of mailbox requirements. So, can the HOA legally fine you? Do they have the power to enforce this rule? The answer lies in understanding your HOA's authority. The biggest mistake homeowners make in HOA disputes is not knowing the rules, both the HOA's and their own legal rights. This section will break down what an HOA legally can and cannot do, how to read and understand your HOA's governing documents, state and federal laws that protect homeowners, how to communicate effectively with your HOA while protecting yourself legally. By the end of this section, you'll know how to challenge unfair HOA actions with confidence. What gives HOAs power? Many homeowners feel intimidated by HOAs because they assume the board has absolute authority. But that's not true. HOAs only have the power given to them by Number 1, the governing documents, CC and RS, bylaws, rules, and regulations. Number 2, state and federal laws. Number 3, case law and precedents. If an HOA tries to enforce a rule that isn't backed by these, you may have legal grounds to challenge them. Step 1. Understanding HOA governing documents. Your HOA's authority comes from its governing documents, a set of legal guidelines that dictate what the HOA can and cannot do. The CC and RS covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The CC and RS are the most powerful document in any HOA. They outline property use restrictions, parking rules, home appearance, landscaping requirements, etc. Homeowner responsibilities, maintenance obligations, dues, assessments, etc. Enforcement powers, fines, penalties, and dispute resolution methods. Penalties for rule violations. How to use the CC and RS to your advantage. Many HOA disputes arise because board members misinterpret or selectively enforce the CC and RS. For example, if the CC and RS don't specifically prohibit a home color, the HOA cannot legally fine you for it. Pro tip: if you get a violation notice, ask for the exact CC and R clause that you allegedly violated. If the rule isn't clearly stated, the HOA may be acting outside their authority. The bylaws. Bylaws govern how the HOA operates, including election procedures for board members, how meetings are conducted, the HOA's responsibilities to homeowners. Why this matters. If your HOA isn't following its own bylaws, for example, failing to hold elections, you can legally challenge their authority. Pro tip: request a copy of the bylaws and check for violations. Many HOAs ignore their own procedural rules. Rules and regulations. These are additional day-to-day rules that the HOA board creates. Warning: unlike CC and RS and bylaws, rules and regulations can often be changed without homeowner approval. Pro tip: if your HOA suddenly creates a new rule, check whether it legally requires a vote before enforcement. Step 2. Understanding your legal rights. Even if your CC and RS seem unfair, they cannot override state and federal laws. Here are some legal protections you should know. The Fair Housing Act, FHA, protects against discrimination. The Fair Housing Act prevents HOAs from enforcing rules based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, or family status. For example, an HOA cannot enforce a rule banning families with children from using common areas. If you believe your HOA is discriminating against you, you can file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. State HOA laws, your biggest protection. Most states have HOA-specific laws that regulate how HOAs enforce fines, limits on assessments and fees, homeowner rights to attend meetings and access records, board member responsibilities. For example, in California, the Davis-Sterling Act requires HOAs to provide written notice before increasing fees. If your HOA fails to do so, you may not be required to pay. Pro tip: search your state's HOA laws and see if your HOA is violating any right to access HOA financial records. Many homeowners suspect their HOA is mismanaging funds. But did you know you have a legal right to access financial records? HOAs must provide annual budgets, spending reports, board meeting minutes. For example, if your HOA raises dues but refuses to disclose financial reports, you may have legal grounds to challenge them. Pro tip: request financial records in writing. If they refuse, you may be able to report them to state authorities. Step 3. Communicating with the HOA and protecting yourself legally. When dealing with an HOA dispute, how you communicate can make or break your case. Here's how to communicate effectively and legally. Always communicate in writing. Bad approach: arguing with HOA board members in person. Good approach: sending a formal email or letter requesting clarification. Pro tip: always keep copies of emails, violation notices, and responses. If the HOA later contradicts itself, you'll have proof. Request a written explanation for violations. If you receive a fine request, the exact CC&R clause you allegedly violated, the evidence the HOA used to determine the violation, the appeal process. For example, if the HOA claims your landscaping is unsightly, but no specific landscaping rule exists, you can challenge the fine. Pro tip: if the HOA refuses to provide details, mention that failure to document enforcement can be a legal violation. Attending HOA meetings and using them to your advantage. Most states require HOAs to hold open meetings, meaning you can attend and voice concerns, request meeting minutes, propose rule changes. For example, if the HOA votes on a controversial new rule without informing homeowners, the decision may be invalid. Pro tip: attend meetings and raise concerns in front of other homeowners. It pressures the HOA to act fairly. Conclusion: the power of knowledge. By understanding your HOA's powers and your legal rights, you'll be prepared to challenge unfair rules and fines. Let's recap the key takeaways. Check your CC and RS bylaws and state laws. These determine what your HOA can legally enforce. Always communicate in writing to create a legal paper trail. Request written explanation for all violations and fines. Attend HOA meetings and push back against unfair policies. Use state and federal laws to protect yourself. Now that you understand how to assess your HOA's power, let's move on to method number 2, documenting and gathering evidence, a critical step for winning any HOA dispute. Imagine you receive a violation notice from your HOA, claiming that your grass is too tall and demanding that you mow it within 48 hours or face a $200 fine. You know for a fact that your lawn is trimmed regularly. In fact, it looks just like your neighbor's, who hasn't received any complaints. You send an email asking for proof of the violation, but the HOA board ignores you. A few weeks later, The fine increases to $500, and a letter arrives threatening a lien on your home. At this point, what do? Many homeowners panic and pay the fine, even if they know it's unfair, just to avoid further trouble. But what if you had documented everything from the start? If you had photographic evidence of your lawn on the date of the violation, screenshots of emails and messages proving selective enforcement, copies of the HOA's landscaping rules showing no height restriction on grass, you could challenge a fine with solid evidence. This is why documentation is your best weapon in HOA disputes. Whether you're dealing with unfair fines, selective enforcement, or legal threats, having a well-organized paper trail can mean the difference between winning your case or losing money. In this section, we'll break down why proper documentation is crucial in HOA disputes, how to gather the right kind of evidence, how to organize your records effectively, how to use documentation in negotiations or legal battles. By the end, you'll know exactly what to document and how to protect yourself. Step 1. Why documentation is essential. Many homeowners lose disputes because they don't have proof. HOAs operate like mini governments, meaning they require evidence before making decisions. If you're facing an unfair rule or fine, having proper documentation can protect you from wrongful fines, prove selective enforcement, hold the HOA accountable for unfair treatment, strengthen your legal case if things escalate. Real-world example. Sarah received a $150 fine for leaving her trash cans out too long, but she noticed that her neighbor left his trash cans out all night without receiving a fine. What she did, she took pictures of her neighbor's trash cans still outside. She requested the HOA's written rule on trash can storage. She emailed the board with her photos, asking why she was fined, but her neighbor wasn't. Result, the HOA waived the fine because she had clear evidence of selective enforcement. Moral of the story? If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Step 2. Types of documentation you should collect. To protect yourself, you need to document everything related to your HOA dispute. Save all HOA communications. The first step in building your case is keeping records of every interaction with your HOA. Emails and letters. Keep copies of all emails, letters, and notices sent by the HOA. Phone calls. If you speak with an HOA board member, write down the date, time, and a summary of the conversation. Meeting minutes. Request a copy of HOA meeting minutes if the dispute was discussed. Pro tip. Always communicate with your HOA in writing. Verbal agreements mean nothing without proof. Take photos and videos as evidence. For violations related to property appearance, maintenance, or rule enforcement, photo and video evidence is critical. Take time-stamped photos of your property when a dispute arises. Record video evidence if necessary, for example, showing that neighbors violate the same rule without punishment. Save backup copies on a secure cloud drive. Pro tip. If your dispute involves noise complaints or HOA harassment, record audio-video proof, if legal in your state. Collect HOA governing documents. Your HOA's governing documents determine whether the board has the legal right to fine you. Obtain copies of the CC and RS covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the bylaws, how the HOA operates, the rules and regulations, day-to-day enforcement rules. For example, if you're fined for painting your front door red, but the CC and RS don't specify an approved color palette, the HOA cannot legally fine you. Pro tip. If the HOA refuses to provide documents, request them in writing and mention your legal right to access them. Track HOA fee payments and fines. If your dispute involves dues, fees, or fines, keep detailed financial records. Keep copies of all HOA payment receipts, violation notices, and fine statements. Any fee increase notices. For example, if your HOA raises your dues without a proper vote, you may have grounds to challenge the increase. Pro tip. Always pay HOA fees via check or online methods, never cash, so you have proof of payment. Step 3. Organizing your documentation. Once you've gathered all your evidence, the next step is staying organized. Create HOA dispute file. Set up a physical or digital folder dedicated to your dispute. Organize by category. Correspondence folder. emails, letters, meeting notes. Evidence folder, photos, videos, violation notices. Legal documents folder, CC and RS, bylaws, state laws. Financial folder, receipts, fine payments, fee increases. Pro tip: use Google Drive or Dropbox to store digital copies in case you need to share them with a lawyer. Step 4. Using documentation to challenge the HOA. Once you have solid evidence, you can use it to fight back strategically. Writing a formal dispute letter. If you need to challenge a fine or unfair rule, send a formal dispute letter. Key elements of an effective letter. State the issue clearly. For example, I received a violation notice for an unapproved mailbox color. Provide evidence. Attach photos, CC&R clauses, payment records, etc. Request a specific action. For example, please remove a fine as no rule was violated. Maintain a professional tone. Pro tip: CC your lawyer or a state HOA regulatory agency to pressure the HOA into responding, using evidence in mediation or legal action. If the HOA refuses to back down, your documentation will be critical in mediation or court. How documentation helps. A lawyer can use your paper trail to demand compliance. A judge can use photos and emails to rule in your favor. A mediator can use timelines and financial records to negotiate a fair resolution. Pro tip: if your HOA repeatedly violates homeowner rights, consider filing a formal complaint with your state HOA regulatory body. Conclusion: document everything when more disputes. If you only take one thing from this section, it's this: if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Save all HOA communications. Photograph and record all violations. Keep copies of HOA rules and payments. Organize everything for easy reference. Use your documentation to challenge unfair HOA actions. Now that you know how to gather and organize evidence, let's move on to method number 3, negotiation and resolution, where you'll learn how to use this documentation to resolve conflicts without escalating to court. Imagine if your HOA just sent you a $500 fine for parking your car in your own driveway. The notice states that overnight driveway parking is prohibited, even though half your neighbors do the same thing without consequences. At this point, you're furious. Your first instinct? Fire off an angry email demanding that the fine be revoked. But before you do, ask yourself, is there a way to resolve this without escalating the conflict? Can I negotiate a fair resolution instead of going to court? How can I approach the HOA effectively to get what I want? The truth is, many HOA disputes don't have to become legal battles. In fact, with the right negotiation tactics, you can resolve conflicts faster, cheaper, and with better long-term results. This section will break down why negotiation is often the best first step, how to communicate effectively with your HOA, steps to negotiate a fair resolution, when to involve a third party, mediation, or arbitration, how to compromise without giving up your rights. By the end, you'll know how to turn a heated HOA dispute into a reasonable conversation and potentially walk away without paying a cent. Step 1. Why negotiation should be your first approach. Legal battles are expensive and stressful. Taking your HOA to court should be a last resort. Lawsuits can take months or even years, cost thousands of dollars, and strain relationships with neighbors. Instead, negotiation is faster, cheaper, and often more effective. HOAs prefer to settle disputes quietly. Most HOA boards want to avoid bad publicity, legal trouble, and internal division. If you approach them professionally, they may be willing to compromise. If they realize they don't have solid legal ground, they may drop the issue. If they know you're prepared with evidence, they may agree to a fair resolution. Real-world example. John received a $200 fine for having excessive weeds in his yard. Instead of arguing, he politely asked for clarification and showed proof that his yard met HOA guidelines. The board revoked the fine immediately to avoid further dispute. Step 2. Communicating with the HOA effectively. The way you communicate with the HOA can make or break your negotiation. Stay calm and professional. Even if you feel the HOA is being unfair, don't get emotional in your communication. Bad approach. This fine is ridiculous. You guys are just making up rules to steal my money. Good approach. I receive a notice regarding a violation, and I'd like to clarify the rule and discuss a possible resolution. Use written communication whenever possible. Always communicate via email or letter, not phone calls. If you speak in person, follow up with an email summarizing the conversation. Keep copies of all communication for future reference. Pro tip. If the HOA refuses to respond, send a certified letter requesting a reply within 10 business days. Request a meeting with the HOA board. If your dispute isn't getting resolved over email, request a formal meeting with the board. How to request a meeting professionally. Be polite but firm. I'd like to discuss a possible resolution regarding my recent fine for overnight parking. Bring documentation. Have photos, HOA rules, and previous communications ready. Stay solution-oriented. Instead of just complaining, propose a reasonable compromise. Step 3. Steps to negotiate a fair resolution. Understand the HOA's perspective. Before negotiating, try to see things from the HOA's point of view. Ask yourself, are they enforcing a rule they genuinely believe is necessary? Are they responding to complaints from other homeowners? Is there a way to resolve this while still respecting their authority? Pro tip. If you acknowledge their concerns before presenting your argument, they'll be more likely to listen. Step 2. Present your case clearly. State your position with supporting evidence. Example of a strong argument. Subject. Request for discussion. Violation notice #A123. Dear HOA Board, I recently received a violation notice stating that my mailbox does not comply with HOA guidelines. I reviewed the HOA rules and found no mention of mailbox color restrictions. To clarify, could you provide the specific CC&R section that supports this violation? Additionally, I have attached a photo showing that multiple homes in the community have mailboxes of varying colors. I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss this further and explore a reasonable resolution. Please let me know when we can meet to review this matter. Sincerely, your name. Pro tip. Keep the tone calm and professional while clearly pointing out inconsistencies. Step 3. Propose a reasonable compromise. Sometimes, meeting the HOA halfway is the best way to resolve a dispute. Examples of reasonable compromises. Parking violation. Would the HOA consider allowing overnight parking on weekends or offering guest permits? Landscaping violation. I understand the HOA's concern about lawn maintenance. I'm happy to trim the hedges within the next 2 weeks, but I'd like to fine waive since no warning was given. Exterior home color dispute. Would the board be open to approving additional color options to accommodate homeowner preferences? Pro tip. If you show a willingness to compromise, the HOA may be more inclined to work with you. Step 4. Involving a third party, mediation, or arbitration. If direct negotiation fails, you still have options before taking legal action. Mediation, a neutral third-party facilitator. Mediation involves a neutral third party helping both sides reach an agreement. Pros. Cheaper than a lawsuit. HOA is often more willing to negotiate. Can lead to a fair compromise. For example, if your HOA is unfairly denying a home improvement request, a mediator can help find a middle ground that satisfies both parties. Pro tip. Many states require mediation before a homeowner can sue an HOA. Check your local laws. Arbitration, a legally binding decision. Arbitration is like mediation, but with a binding decision from a neutral arbitrator. Pros. Faster than a court case. Legally enforceable decision. HOA is required to follow the ruling. For example, if an HOA is trying to illegally foreclose on your home over disputed fees, arbitration can stop the foreclosure if ruled in your favor. Pro tip. Check your HOA's governing documents. Some require arbitration before filing a lawsuit. Conclusion. How to successfully negotiate an HOA dispute. To recap, the best way to resolve an HOA conflict is through strategic negotiation. Stay calm and professional in all communication. Use written communication to create a paper trail. Request a meeting and present your case with evidence. Propose a reasonable compromise when possible. Consider mediation or arbitration if negotiations fail. By following these steps, you can settle disputes without unnecessary legal battles, saving time, money, and stress. Now that you know how to negotiate effectively, let's move on to method number 4, filing a formal complaint, where you'll learn how to take action when an HOA refuses to cooperate. Imagine if you've done everything right. You read the HOA's governing documents and found that the board is violating its own rules. You gathered strong evidence, photos, emails, and even witness statements. You tried negotiating politely, even proposing a reasonable compromise. You reached out for mediation, but the HOA ignored your requests or refused to cooperate. Yet, despite your efforts, the HOA refuses to back down. At this point, it's time to take things to the next level, filing a formal complaint. Filing a complaint forces the HOA to respond and can lead to an internal review by the HOA board, state or county intervention if the HOA is violating laws, legal consequences for the HOA if they're engaging in misconduct. In this section, you'll learn when to file a formal complaint, how to properly draft and submit your complaint, where to escalate your complaint if the HOA ignores it, how to use legal remedies to hold your HOA accountable. By the end, you'll know how to take action effectively and increase your chances of getting justice in an HOA dispute. Step 1. When should you file a formal complaint? Filing a formal complaint should not be your first step, but it is necessary when the HOA is violating its own rules, for example, unfair enforcement, unapproved fines. The HOA refuses to respond to reasonable requests or negotiations. The HOA is engaging in misconduct, for example, financial fraud, discrimination, harassment. Your rights as a homeowner are being violated, for example, illegal fines, wrongful foreclosure threats. Signs that filing a complaint is necessary. Selective enforcement. The HOA fines you for an unapproved mailbox, but 10 other homes have the same mailbox with no penalties. Unlawful fines. The HOA fines you without a warning notice, even though their own rules state that a warning must be given first. Failure to respond. You've sent multiple written requests for clarification, and the HOA ignores you completely. Financial mismanagement. The HOA board raises fees without a community vote, violating its own bylaws. Pro tip: the stronger your paper trail of evidence, the more power your complaint will have. Step 2. Drafting a strong formal complaint letter. A well-written complaint forces the HOA to take you seriously. What to include in your complaint letter? Clear subject line, for example, formal complaint regarding unlawful fine, case number 123. A concise summary of the issue, evidence supporting your claim, photos, emails, rulebook citations, etc. A specific request for resolution, fine reversal, board review, etc. A deadline for response, typically 10 to 15 business days. Your contact information. Example of a formal complaint letter. Your name, your address, city, state, zip code, email, phone number, date, Homeowners Association Board, HOA name, HOA address, subject, formal complaint, violation of HOA rules and request for resolution. Dear HOA Board President's name, I am writing to formally submit a complaint regarding a violation notice I received on date. The notice states that I am in violation of specific rule, but upon reviewing the HOA's governing documents, I have found no such restriction. I have attached photos, a copy of the HOA rules, and email correspondence that demonstrate the rule being applied selectively. Evidence: photos showing multiple homes in the community with the same feature. The HOA failing to follow proper procedures. Evidence: screenshot of emails where I requested clarification, but received no response. The fine being issued without cause. Evidence: a copy of the rulebook, which contains no mention of this restriction. I respectfully request the following resolution: the removal of this fine and written confirmation that I am in compliance. A board review to ensure that similar violations are enforced fairly across all homeowners. A written response within 10 business days, per HOA policy on homeowner disputes. If I do not receive a response within this time frame, I will escalate my complaint to state regulatory body or legal counsel. Thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to resolving this matter fairly. Sincerely, your name. Pro tip: always send your complaint via certified mail to prove that the HOA received it. Step 3. Escalating your complaint if the HOA ignores you. If the HOA fails to respond or refuses to resolve the issue, it's time to escalate the complaint to higher authorities. File a complaint with the state HOA regulatory agency. Many states have government agencies that oversee HOA behavior. Examples of state agencies: California, Department of Real Estate; Florida, Department of Business and Professional Regulation; Texas, HOA Ombudsman Office. Pro tip: search online for your state HOA complaint process to find the correct agency. Contact your city or county government. Some local governments have HOA oversight committees that can intervene in disputes. Examples of city/county complaints: zoning violations, for example, HOA enforcing illegal building restrictions; unlawful fee increases, for example, raising dues without a community vote; discriminatory enforcement, for example, HOA targeting specific homeowners unfairly. File a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. While not a legal authority, the Better Business Bureau can pressure the HOA to respond by impacting its public reputation. How to file a Better Business Bureau complaint. Go to www.bbb.org. Search for your HOA's name. Submit a complaint detailing the issue. Pro tip: many HOAs will respond quickly to avoid a bad Better Business Bureau rating. Take legal action if necessary. If all else fails, you may need to take legal action against the HOA. Legal options: hire an HOA attorney. A lawyer can send a demand letter or file a lawsuit. Small claims court: if the dispute involves fines under $10,000, you can sue in small claims court. Class action lawsuit: if multiple homeowners face the same issue, a group lawsuit can be filed. Pro tip: some lawyers offer free consultations. Speak with one before taking legal action. Step 4. Protecting yourself from HOA retaliation. Some HOAs retaliate against homeowners who file complaints. Signs of HOA retaliation: sudden violation notices for minor infractions, harassment from board members, threats of legal action. How to protect yourself: document everything. Keep a record of all interactions. Involve other homeowners. A group complaint is harder to ignore. Notify local authorities. Report harassment or unfair treatment. Pro tip: if you suspect retaliation, consult a lawyer immediately. Conclusion of the method number 4. How to successfully file a complaint against your HOA. By following this method, you force the HOA to respond and increase your chances of winning your dispute. Number 1. Know when to file a formal complaint. Number 2. Write a strong, evidence-based complaint letter. Number 3. Escalate the complaint if the HOA ignores you. Number 4. Use legal action as a last resort. Number 5. Protect yourself from retaliation. Now that you know how to hold an HOA accountable, let's move on to method number 5. Preventing future conflicts, where you'll learn how to stay ahead of HOA issues before they even start. Imagine if you just moved into a beautiful neighborhood. The lawns are perfectly maintained, the streets are clean, and everything seems peaceful. But within a few months, you start receiving violation notices for small things. Your trash bins were left out a little too long, your garden has unauthorized plants, or your car was parked an inch over sidewalk. At first, it's frustrating. Then it gets worse. You hear from neighbors about HOA fines piling up, unfair enforcement, and even threats of foreclosure. You start to wonder, how can I avoid being targeted by the HOA? What can I do to stay informed about the rules? How do I prevent future conflicts before they even start? The best way to deal with an HOA dispute is to prevent it from happening in the first place. In this section, you'll learn how to stay informed about your HOA's rules and decisions, how to build positive relationships with your HOA board and neighbors, how to address small issues before they turn into major conflicts, how to protect yourself from unfair enforcement and fines, how to get involved in the HOA to influence change. By the end, you'll have a proactive strategy for living peacefully in an HOA community without constantly battling with the board. Step 1. Stay informed about your HOA's rules and decisions. The biggest mistake homeowners make? Not knowing their own HOA's rules. Read and understand the governing documents. Every HOA has a set of rules that homeowners must follow. These are usually found in CC and RS covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The main rulebook governing what you can and can't do. Bylaws, rules about how the HOA operates, including board elections and decision-making. Rules and regulations, additional policies that the HOA enforces, for example, parking, landscaping, noise restrictions. Pro tip: request a copy of these documents when you move in. If you don't have them, ask the HOA for an updated version. Attend HOA meetings and stay updated. HOA boards make decisions that affect the entire community, but many homeowners don't even attend meetings. Why you should go to HOA meetings. You'll hear about rule changes before they happen. You can speak up if a new rule seems unfair. You'll learn how HOA funds are being spent. You'll stay informed about potential disputes affecting other homeowners. Pro tip: if you can't attend, read the meeting minutes, official summaries of each meeting. Most HOAs are required to provide them upon request. Watch for HOA rule changes and new policies. Many homeowners don't realize their HOA can change the rules, sometimes without much notice. Example: an HOA might pass a new rule that limits rental properties in the neighborhood. If you were planning to rent out your home, you'd suddenly be stuck. How to stay ahead of rule changes. Ask the board if any rule changes are being discussed. Review HOA newsletters and announcements. Talk to other homeowners about any upcoming policy shifts. Pro tip: if you disagree with a new rule, challenge it early, before it becomes permanent. Step 2. Build positive relationships with HOA board members and neighbors. HOA boards have a lot of power, but they're also made up of regular homeowners like you. Get to know your HOA board members. Why this helps? Board members are more likely to listen to you if they know you personally. If you ever have a dispute, you'll have an easier time negotiating. You can get insider knowledge about upcoming rules and decisions. Pro tip: introduce yourself before you have a problem. Attend a meeting, say hello, and establish a friendly relationship early on. Be a good neighbor and build community support. Many HOA conflicts start because of neighbor complaints. If you have strong relationships with your neighbors, you'll be less likely to be reported. How to be a good neighbor. Communicate. If you're hosting a gathering, give neighbors a heads up. Keep your property maintained. Avoid giving anyone a reason to complain. Offer help. Be the neighbor people want support, not fight. Pro tip: if you ever need to dispute an HOA rule, having community support can make a huge difference. Step 3. Address small issues before they escalate. Many HOA conflicts start small, but spiral out of control when ignored. Respond to HOA notices immediately. If you receive a violation notice, don't ignore it. Steps to take: read the notice carefully. Does it cite a specific rule? Is a fine valid? Gather evidence. If you believe the violation is unfair, take photos or find supporting documentation. Reach out professionally. Politely ask for clarification and request a resolution before fines escalate. Pro tip: many violations can be resolved quickly if addressed early. If you ignore them, they can turn into expensive fines or legal action. Set up preventative communication with the HOA. If you're planning any changes to your home or property, check with the HOA first. Examples: planning to paint your house? Confirm approved colors. Installing a fence? Make sure it meets HOA guidelines. Hosting an event? Notify the HOA to avoid complaints. Pro tip: by asking for approval in advance, you prevent conflicts before they happen. Step 4. Protect yourself from unfair HOA enforcement. Even if you follow the rules, some HOAs unfairly target homeowners. Watch for selective enforcement. Some HOAs only enforce rules against certain homeowners, while letting others slide. Example: you get fined for having holiday lights up too long, but other homes with lights still up aren't penalized. What to do? Take photos of other homes violating the same rule. Request a written explanation from the HOA. File a formal complaint if the rule is being enforced unfairly. Document everything. If you suspect unfair treatment, keep records of violation notices and fines, emails and letters from the HOA, photos or videos of similar violations ignored by the HOA, meeting minutes discussing the rule in question. Pro tip: the more evidence you have, the stronger your case if you need to dispute a fine or file a complaint. Step 5. Get involved in the HOA and influence change. If you really want to prevent conflicts, be part of the decision-making process. Join an HOA committee. Most HOAs have committees that help shape rules and policies. Examples of HOA committees: Architectural Review Committee reviews requests for home modifications. Finance Committee oversees how HOA funds are spent. Rules and Regulations Committee helps revise and update HOA rules. Pro tip: by joining a committee, you'll have direct input on HOA decisions. Run for the HOA board. The best way to protect homeowner rights? Be on the board yourself. Why join the HOA board? You'll have a vote on rule changes. You can hold other board members accountable. You'll prevent unfair enforcement in your community. Pro tip: many HOA boards struggle to fill positions, so you may have an easy path to getting elected. How to prevent HOA conflicts before they happen? By taking a proactive approach, you can live in an HOA community without constant disputes. Stay informed about the rules. Build positive relationships with the HOA and neighbors. Address small issues before they escalate. Protect yourself from unfair enforcement. Get involved in the HOA to influence change. Following these steps will help you avoid unnecessary fines, disputes, and stress, ensuring a peaceful and enjoyable HOA living experience. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching the full video. I truly appreciate your time and support. I hope this helped you navigate your HOA conflicts and gave you the tools you need to handle them legally and effectively. If you found this video valuable, drop a like. It really helps the channel grow. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences with HOAs. Please subscribe if you haven't already, so you never miss out on more in-depth stories and guides. Asterisk, and don't forget to share this with anyone who's dealing with HOA troubles. It could make a real difference for them. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.